Donald Trump wished that he had the type of generals that Adolf Hitler had. This is according to the New York Times in an interview with Donald Trump's former chief of staff, retired General John Kelly, in which John Kelly stated that not only did Donald Trump wish that he had those types of generals, but he oftentimes regarded the leader of the Third Reich as someone that he admired.
He's certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure. He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things too. First of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy, so that nothing he did you could argue was good.
Now, this would be an October surprise if we didn't already know who Donald Trump really was at his core. He wants to use, and he's very clear about it, he stated very clearly that he wanted to use the military to suppress the quote unquote enemies within.
But we have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
Here's what Vice President Kamala Harris had to say about it.
Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. One that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens.
I think this is one of the most disturbing aspects about the potential of a second term for Donald Trump. It's not just that this is who he is. It's the fact that he is surrounded by people who are committed to making his vision of America come to pass. He's not going to be dealing with people who have a commitment to the United States. He's going to be dealing with people who have a commitment to him. And so he will, in fact, have generals that will do whatever he says. Here's what Kamala Harris's running mate Tim Walz had to say about it.
His chief of staff, a 4-star general, John Kelly, said he's the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And today it's been reported that Donald Trump said, I need the kind of generals that Hitler had. Don't be the frog in the boiling water and think this is okay. As a 24-year veteran of our military, that makes me sick as hell. And it should make you sick.
Some people are regarding this as an October surprise, but this really shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who's been paying attention. This is what Donald Trump has been the entire time. And if not for generals and officials and staffers who had more of a commitment to the Constitution than they did Donald Trump, then this would have happened during the first term. And this is what makes his second term so dangerous, the possibility of it so dangerous. Not just his loyalty and his fealty to Vladimir Putin, not just his commitment to the deportation of 12 million immigrants in this country. It's the fact that he wants to use the military to crush dissent in the United States of America, and the fact that he has millions of sycophants who will celebrate and cheer it on. And if you add into the equation the recent decision in July by the Supreme Court that gave the president full immunity for any of his official actions, this presents a very dark future for the United States of America. You consider Donald Trump has already said that he wants to be dictator on day one. He's already talked about having a day of violence. He's already surrounded by people who want to do away with the Constitution. We're not talking about a regular election, and I know you know that, but what's so troublesome about this is that you have so many Americans who see this And they ignore this because they're under some delusion that this type of power and this type of abuse of the military will not harm them. They believe that this is only going to be used against immigrants. They believe that Donald Trump's fascism is only going to be used against minorities or any type of protesters. They honestly believe that if they're MAGA, that everything will be fine and that this will not be used against them. And well, that might very well be the case. But as we know from history, what begins by the oppression of one group never stays with that one group. And so what's absolutely appalling to me is that you have minorities, that you have Latinos, that you have black people, that you have gay people. You have all of these different groups who support Donald Trump. And they look at the fact that he is literally telling you that he wants to use the military on groups that he disagrees with. But somehow they believe that by aligning and voting for Donald Trump, that they won't get caught up in the deportations, that they won't get caught up in the suppression of dissent, that they will be just fine because they're wearing a red hat. And that is simply not the case.
And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within.
It's such a dangerous time for the United States of America because so many people take for granted the very notion of democracy. But when you consider all of the efforts being made by MAGA up and down the ballots all throughout every single state, they're doing everything they can to suppress the vote and to give power to officials to ignore or not to certify the vote, right? They're doing everything they can to break democracy because they've known for a very long time that democracy is not in their own personal benefit, their own personal pursuit of power. And it certainly does not bode well for conservatism in the long run. The longer we have a democracy, the more inclusive that democracy is going to become by default, simply by virtue of the trajectory of the population, by the trends of society, where society becomes more inclusive. That goes against conservatism. Society becomes more understanding. That goes against conservatism. And so conservatives have known for a very long time that democracy is not in their favor. Here's the difference. You have some conservatives that are willing to make that sacrifice in the name of democracy. Those are the Republicans who have decided to vote for Kamala Harris. But then you have MAGA, who have committed everything to the personality and the deity that they see in Donald Trump. And so they're willing to sacrifice democracy in order to get Donald Trump elected. Everyone is sounding the alarms and making it clear that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. But if America allows him to get back into power, he has already made it very clear what he intends to do, which is to usurp democracy for the sake of his ego. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe to this channel, Really American, where we're holding the line against this fascist takeover of the United States of America.